Well, hello to everybody here. It's Teresa Sanderson. Super excited, as always, to connect with you for another episode of the Nurse Entrepreneur Spotlight. And today we have with us one of my dear friends, Karen Furr. And Karen, I just want to thank you for sharing some time with us today and sharing your story.
Absolutely. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. And for any of you who don't know Karen yet, Karen is a registered nurse. She's got a master's degree in education, more than 15 years experience as a nurse, and she's done work in areas like vascular access, pediatric, neonatal, technology-dependent intensive care units, pediatric cardiac cath lab utilization, and prior authorization review. Wow, those are some heavy areas. She has also been an instructor for both clinical practicum and classroom settings, which I think is wonderful. The world needs so many good educators, especially today. And Karen is committed to following her mom's footsteps and making a significant impact in her nursing career. She has founded the Resilient Nurse Project, and I have to believe for such a time as this, right? She founded the Resilient Nurse Project in 2020 to fulfill her mission of helping nurses recognize, address, and overcome burnout and compassion fatigue. Oh my goodness. And before I leave this bio, I just want to mention for all of you who are listening, Karen is actually hosting a conference in July 2023, and it's the Resilient Nurse Summit coming up in Atlanta, Georgia. We're going to talk about that later. So I just want to put that in your think tank as we get started. So Karen, thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Isn't it kind of crazy when you hear your own bio? It's like, oh my goodness.
I'm like, dang, I've done a lot of things.
She sounds pretty
I'm not that old, surely.
I love that. Well, so we know a little bit about your history as a nurse, but tell us a little bit about, kind of the how and why you got into nursing, and a little more about the backgrounds that you worked in and what you enjoyed, maybe some things that weren't going quite right.
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually became a nurse out of necessity, not a calling. I was going to school for something entirely different, and I got pregnant and ended up a few years later as a single mom of two babies, unexpectedly. And so my parents said, we are not going to support you and your kids forever. We're going to support you for the next 2 years, and you're going to go to nursing school. And I said, okay. And my mom was a nurse. So they knew that that was a good, solid career that would provide what I needed for my little family. And so I went to nursing school, and then kind of in the same vein, my mom had a friend, a nursing friend who had an opening where at the hospital she worked at. And so it was like, hey, you want to work here? Okay, sure. And then, and it kind of in that same process, I ended up in the pediatric ICU as a new grad. So I just followed kind of opportunities that came. But I fell in love with it once I dug in. I fell in love with the opportunity to care for other people, especially children. It was such a rewarding environment. It's hard also, but really rewarding to be able to be with them in their worst times and make it a little bit better.
Yeah.
So I did pediatric ICU for about 8 years. And then my own daughter, my youngest daughter, who was 9 at the time, was diagnosed with brain cancer.
Oh,
and it was a total shock. We had no forewarnings. There was no long journey of chasing symptoms. It was like, I thought she had a headache. She had a brain tumor. So it was crazy. But in that moment, my first thought that popped into my head was that I had already given all of my energy, all of my strength to all the other sick kids I had taken care of. How the heck am I supposed to do this for my own? And I never really thought about burnout or recognized it until that moment when I realized how depleted I was when I needed to be strong the most. Yeah. And so that's when I switched into kind of testing some other nursing opportunities to figure out what was the best fit for, being able to care for her and her needs, and still, provide the family with some income and that sort of thing. So I kind of tested different utilization review, vascular access, different things that met my scheduling needs. And that's the great thing about nursing, right? You can do so many things and serve, every season of your life well. That's one of the most amazing things about this profession. But
Absolutely.
anyway, when my daughter got sick and I had that kind of aha moment about burnout, the only way I knew to cope with that overwhelm was to learn, because I'm a natural learner. I love to learn new things. And so I just started studying resilience, mental toughness, stress management, as a means of coping for myself and for my family. And then my coworkers started taking notice. How are you going through this, this extremely stressful time, this traumatic event with your child, and still showing up for work every day and still keeping a smile on your face? And so I was able to start sharing what I was learning about resilience and stress management, trauma processing. And the more people asked, the more I realized that this is a message, this is knowledge, and that nurses need, and they aren't getting anywhere else. And so that took me into the entrepreneur journey of, teaching nurses on a larger scale how to deal with burnout and compassion fatigue.
Wow. What a journey. And, I have to say, what an eye opener, number one, for you. That must have been to say, okay, I've got this crisis now with my own family,
Yeah,
and I don't have anything to bring to the table.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
spent already. Wow, that must have been frightening and overwhelming, all the things
absolutely.
all
All
at
all
once.
those things. Yes,
Yeah.
it
Oh,
was, and it was,
man.
yeah, and every so many nurses I talk to have a similar experience, that they don't even realize how much they give and give and give until something, more than the day to day stressors hits, or something
Mhm.
at a higher level of need occurs, and then you're already in crisis mode. And just like with, all the other things we address, we have a code cart built before there's a code, right? we
Right.
have
Mm.
we have heart monitors for a reason, because we want to know before the patient is,
Yes.
has issues. And so, but we don't do that for ourselves, right? We do no prior, like, monitoring or checking in with ourselves. And so that's what I'm trying to change, is that we as nurses need to, check on our own strength, our own status, before we're in crisis mode, and we're already trying to overcome something when we're stuck in a hole. It's just
Mm.
it's unfortunately way too common.
It is. It is. And I know that you and I have talked about my personal history of going down the hole of major depression. And truly,
Yeah,
as you talk about, how that happened for you in that instant and you realized that you had nothing to give. For me, it was slightly different, but it was literally a transition from one day being able to do all the things and juggle everything and manage, to not being able to get out of bed the next day
yeah,
and just staying in bed until noon, even though I knew I had all of these things to do. Even though I
yeah.
knew, there was a job, there was patient care, there was all, I just can't do it
You just
anymore.
couldn't do it.
And it was
Right.
just like that, like a light switch. And I was out of the game for 3 solid years, could not work.
Yeah.
Really wondered if I'd ever go back to work as a nurse. So yeah, I love your message. And I think
Oh,
I
thank you.
share, yeah, I share my own story anymore, just because I think people need to know what depression looks like.
Hmm.
Because depression typically looks very high functioning, right? People who are on the
Yeah,
edge of it
absolutely.
typically look very high functioning. They're smiling, they're doing all the things, showing up for everybody else.
Yep.
Dang. But we're
Yeah.
leaving ourselves
Yeah,
out. We're leaving ourselves out. So, if we can help anybody back away from that, I am so behind your
absolutely.
mission and what you're doing. I just think this is
Oh, thank you.
absolutely, absolutely. So,
Thank you.
we talked about, this drew you into entrepreneurship. Really, that
Hmm.
that experience just kind of caused you to pivot. So, tell us about your journey into entrepreneurship. Did you immediately transition, or how did you become an entrepreneur?
Yeah, so I started just on the side. Just actually the first thing I did was a summit, which now you mentioned we're doing this is our fourth year doing the summit. But that was what I started was just this it started out as this free, online thing where I had different speakers come and talk, and I started building an email list of people, and then just kind of little by little building blocks that eventually felt like a real business. I think sometimes we don't give ourselves enough credit.
Yes.
And so, yeah, it just started out as kind of a side thing that I did for fun and just grew it as I had time. And the more I fed into it, the more the need arose, the more people who reached out and asked for more support, more resources. And so it's just been a continuous learning process.
Hmm. Wow. Well, that is incredible. And so I love the name, the Resilient Nurse Project.
Thank
I think
you.
that is huge. And so tell us a little bit, how do you serve your clients? What kind of work does the Resilient Nurse Project do?
Yeah. So I mentioned our summit. We do that every year in July. We have a 3-day summit that is all about educating the nurses on how to care for themselves. It is all about filling the nurses' own needs.
Mm.
They get skills training everywhere else all throughout the year, but this is all about taking care of themselves and each other. And so we do that every year. We also have retreats, which are usually, a 3 or 4 day more intimate setting of a small group of nurses, and we just get away to a location that has no distractions, right?
Mm.
And really take some time to practice self-care, to talk about the struggles that they're facing, the work-life balance, the questions about their career, and dig deeper into how can we help them serve themselves and still serve their passion in a healthy way. And then we also have some courses online that we offer for nurses.
I love that. I love
Yeah,
that. So you have this a solid educational platform, it sounds like, and you're doing the work with the summits and the annual conference um and then online courses, but you also have that personal connection though available through
absolutely.
the retreats. And then this is your first annual or the
This is
the
the
first
first
conference is
in
going to be
person.
in
Yeah,
person. Wow. So that's going to
yeah,
be
yeah.
incredible. And one of the things I loved as we talked about the conference is that you mentioned it's going to be limited to, what is it, 50?
Yes, we're limited to 50 seats, and we've already sold some, so we're filling the room. But I wanted to make sure for this first in-person one that we really were able to serve people well, and so that's why I decided to kind of limit the group to make sure that we can make it a great experience. So I'm really excited, and of course, you're going to be there with us as
I
a
can't
sponsor.
wait.
So yeah, and we also, thanks to you, and I'm sure we'll talk about this in a minute, but we're also able to offer continuing education credits this year. So there will be, yeah, for if you attend all the sessions and do all the little, quizzes at the end, you can earn up to 15 continuing education credits at the conference. So
Oh my gosh, that is
yeah,
amazing. Just
I'm really excited about that.
yeah. But I
Yeah,
also love, the commitment to making it a good experience for the participants because, Karen, we
absolutely.
both know business is business. And there are many people who would just say, let's pack the room. How many seats can we get in it? And then we'll determine
Right.
the number of invitations, right? Let's bring in as much money as we can and then figure out the rest. And so I love
Yeah,
that your focus is clearly nurse centric. How can I serve them?
absolutely.
Showing up as a servant leader. So just kudos to you for doing it that
Oh,
way.
thank you.
I mean, because
Thank
that's
you.
a very committed choice, to
Thank you.
doing it that way. No, no, no. Thank you. Thank you. And I'm just honored to be a part of it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun and
Yeah, it's going to be
maybe
great.
a
I'm
little
excited.
teary. I don't know. I don't know what to expect.
Probably. There's probably going to be a tear or two shed, but we will have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And truly, the other thing that keeping it small allows us to do is really give nurses the opportunity to ask very personalized questions and get specific feedback, because sometimes you can hear all these generalized, tips and tricks and whatnot, but until you can sit down with someone and say, okay, but what about me? Because I have a 3-year-old and they get up at this time of day, and, and then for somebody else to be able to say, but I've been a nurse for 30 years. So how do I apply this, and what my situation is? And so I love the opportunity to really help people apply what they're learning to their own specific needs and environment. And so I think that's going to be a great opportunity for us to do that as well.
I love it. I love it. So, so we've talked about how you serve your clients, and I have to ask now, what do you enjoy most about working for yourself, Karen?
Oh, the freedom to travel. I love traveling. So whether I'm working, in Georgia where I live, or in Florida at the beach, or wherever, that's the greatest thing. The second thing I would say is the ability to make a bigger impact. I'm not bound by a corporation's, red tape or restrictions, or everything has to follow these certain little boxes. No, I can put forth ideas. I can try new things. I can talk to people in a way that's real without all of that confinement. And so I'm able to make the impact the way I want to, without somebody else, putting the kibosh on it because it doesn't fit their agenda.
Now that's some real talk right there, guys.
I mean, I worked for a huge hospital system here in Atlanta, the children's system here, and they do lots of amazing things. At the same time, everything needs to fit their agenda, their marketing, their branding, which is great for them. But at the same time, for what I want to do, there were limits to how I could do that. And it makes sense for the way they run their business, but it didn't make sense for me to be confined by that. So in the same way, as an entrepreneur, you get to decide how you show up, how you impact things, where you message, you get to make those decisions. Whereas if you're working for somebody else, they make those final decisions, and that's okay for some people, right? Some people, that's the right environment for them. But for me, I like the freedom to have the final say. And sometimes, you and I were talking about life's been a little bit crazy recently. So it also gives me the ability to say, I'm not working today. My kids need me, my husband needs me, or I'm just tired and not feeling it. Now, obviously, if I do that every day, then I'm not going to have a business. I have to be, disciplined. But at the same time, entrepreneurship gives me the freedom to allow myself that space, that healing time, that time for myself when I need it.
I love, love, love that. And I think, anymore, what we're hearing from nurses in general, who are experiencing burnout and who are just worn out right now, is that we can't pay them enough to work in the environments that we have for them. Nurses are willing to say, I'm willing to walk away without another job, without a plan. Even I'm willing to walk away right now. And so I think for me, the time freedom is so important. And it just begs the question, why have we always done nursing this way, right? When you think about it, why have we always done it this way? Why have we never thought of creating a way for nurses to have life balance and still work at the bedside or within our organizations and facilities? Why has it always been this way? Why have we allowed it to perpetuate? Because now we're at the point of, what is going to happen with nursing? We really have to, it's more than patching a tire, the state of nursing.
Absolutely.
It's more than patching a tire. It's like all the wheels are off the car.
Yep, we need to blow it up and start over.
But it's already flat. And so it's it's, I think what you're doing for yourself in the space of an entrepreneur, of just being able to take care of yourself and those you love in the way that aligns with what you value most. I think that's just such a great example. I mean, would you agree that most nurses probably experience so much stress and anxiety because their position puts them out of alignment with what they value most, which is their family, right?
Absolutely.
When we're outside of not aligned with our values, It's
You're going
stressful.
to live in constant turmoil.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
you know, what we're seeing now is nurse entrepreneurs are the ones who are making new innovations, new ideas that are going to make big impacts, that already are making big impacts. I
Yeah.
mean, some of the greatest new tools for using, you know, virtual monitoring or
Mhm.
staffing and acuity measurement tools, a lot of those are being invented by nurse entrepreneurs. And so I love this kind of rise of nurses who are thinking outside the box and saying, I see this major problem and I'm no longer going to wait for the system to fix it. I am going to be the fix and then show the system what I've created. And I think
Exactly.
that's just going to continue to be the answers for nurses who understand what's wrong with the current situation so much. They
Mhm.
are going to be the ones, we are going to be the ones to come in and say, here's how to do it better. Here's how we do it differently going forward.
I love it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You said a mouthful right there, and I love every bit of it. So now you mentioned earlier this is the first year that your conference is going to be able to award nursing CE credit.
Mm-hmm.
We worked together a little bit on that. You used my course, CEU Provider
Yeah.
Made Easy, and I would just love to know, what was that experience like for you using the course to become a provider? And, how did that go for you?
It was fantastic. So I have a master's in nursing education. So I wasn't totally unfamiliar with the idea of how to create all the paperwork, you know, and
Sure.
it's a heck of a lot of paperwork to do CEs. I had done that as part of my master's. So I was already familiar. And even having done that, when I looked at trying to become a CE provider, um, the it's just daunting that the amount of paperwork and regulations and the resources that are available are terrible,
Mhm.
just to be frank, you know, um, or just completely ridiculous and unnecessary, and then come with a ridiculous price. And I'm like, it can't be that hard. It can't be, there's got to be a better way. And so when I found your course, I was like, yeah, this is it. You removed all the BS and you just said, like, look, here's the papers you need to fill out. I'll give you an example, you
Yeah.
know, and it was so straightforward, and it was a beautiful process. And, you know, of course, you were there to answer questions along the way. And we just got our approval last month. So I know, yay.
Exciting.
So
Exciting.
yeah, it made your course made something that seemed like way out there. Don't even think about this as a goal. It made it something that I could accomplish. It made it within reach. And so that was a huge, you know, huge help for us.
Oh, girl, that makes me feel so good. And congratulations on your approval.
Oh, thank you.
One
Thank
thing
you.
I want everybody who's listening to know, though, is how long it took you to complete
It
that.
took about, yeah. So to actually complete the paperwork took me, I, I don't know, maybe a month at most. I mean, doing my part time, you know, a couple hours a night, creating the courses and the objectives and everything. I turned it in at the end of January and I got my approval end of May. So it took, what, 5 months?
Hmm.
February, March, April, 4 months to hear back from the Florida Board of Nursing. And they came back with a couple questions too. And I had to, you know, resubmit a few things and adjust
Okay.
a few things. But yeah, it wasn't a super quick process as far as, you know, it's not an overnight thing.
Mhm.
But without your course, though, it would have taken me years. And I'm not
Wow.
exaggerating. I mean, it would have
Yeah.
taken me
Yeah.
years to figure out all the pieces and all of the, you know, lingo and who
Right.
wants what. So yeah, you cut down a lifetime of work.
And I love it. I think that's a nice realistic look. And, you know, about a month is very typical for people who are picking up the course 4 weeks, 6 weeks. And
Yeah,
but I love that, the proof is really in the pudding. Can you really become a CE provider with that course? And the answer is yes. You might have to
absolutely.
answer a question or two here or there, but that's okay. You can get
You
through
know,
it.
and the questions that they asked were all just because I made silly mistakes. It wasn't anything from your
Yeah.
course that wasn't clear. It
Yeah.
was just like, oh, duh, that
Well,
doesn't
but
match, you know, or like,
yeah, yeah. Well, I'm glad that, you were able to achieve that goal. I just think that's amazing. And
yeah.
so in the future with the Resilient Nurse Project, what are your plans? How do you plan to use nursing continuing education in your work?
I have a whole list of a library of courses that I want to create now,
Oh,
that I've kind of had in the back of my mind. But now that we're able to add the credit to it, it gives nurses the ability to really, you know, accomplish what they need to accomplish and also feed themselves. So I think
mhm.
it's really going to add value for the nurses that they're able. It, something that I've learned with nurses, and I kind of already knew this, but I really see it in my business, is that it is so hard for us to say yes to ourselves. It is so hard for us to say yes to anything that we only see as self-serving, because nurses have such an other person focus that
Mhm.
it's hard for us to make any connection that actually serving ourselves is in service to others.
Right.
When nurses see the continuing education credit, then it overcomes that mental block, because it checks the box of I'm serving what my license requirements tell me they want from me, what my hospital says they want from me. I'm
Mhm.
giving them that CE credit that they say I have to
Yeah.
do, right?
Yeah.
So we're like sneaking in, you actually can do it for yourself. Like you have to, such a mental
Yeah.
block for
It's
nurses. And
true.
the CEs actually allow them to feel less selfish about learning things that are going to help them.
I love it. And you know what? It's the other incentive is that as a CE, their employer may even pay for it.
Exactly.
A lot of companies do that.
Yeah.
So it opens up other avenues for funding the program for them and all of those kinds of things. But I absolutely agree. Nurses are the world's worst at being able to, I mean, if we're not willing to give ourselves a potty break,
Exactly.
I,
Exactly.
I don't think I can spend $5 on me. Thanks. No.
Right. Yeah. So I'm really excited about, the ability to add to our course library with continuing education offerings. So
That's going to be amazing, amazing. I wish you abundant success in all of that. I just
thank you. Thank you.
imagine. So now what I want to ask you, Karen, is for all of the aspiring nurse entrepreneurs who are out there, the nurses who
Hmm.
are thinking, as they go to work every day, maybe they're dreading to go to work, right? I know a lot of nurses are even posting these days, I get anxious before I even go to work. I have a lot of anxiety before I go in. Maybe those nurses who are wishing, gosh, I just wish I had something more. I wish my life had balance. Wish I didn't have to miss my children's events, or why do I have to be, working Christmas or Thanksgiving or, all those things. What
Yeah.
they're dreaming of maybe doing something else. What is the one piece of information or advice you'd want to give them?
Do it scared. Don't wait until you're not afraid of it to take the first step. As nurses, we have so many skills that we don't recognize a lot of times. So I have this fun story I like to tell people. When I was in a state of like, I cannot do one more night shift, I got to find something, anything else. I kind of reached that point in my career too. At one point, I had a friend who owned a publishing company and needed help with, business things. And she was like, I think you'd actually be good at this, because I need somebody who can like think critically, when a problem arises. I need somebody who's emotionally intelligent. And I'm like, I literally do that with my patients every day.
Yeah.
And so as she convinced me why my nursing skills actually served, in a project management role, it was like, hey, I'm actually pretty smart. I just, we as nurses have so much skill and knowledge, our time management skills, our prioritization, delegating, identifying, assessing a problem and identifying a fix or an adjustment. We do that every day. You
Yep.
absolutely can do that in a business setting, whether you are the owner of that business or you contract with a business to bring your skills. It's okay to do it scared. Just take the first step and then surround yourself with mentors who are a step ahead of you and just learn from them and ask questions.
Oh, what great advice. Do it scared.
Yeah.
Don't
Yep.
wait. Exactly. Exactly. And I think, a lot of times I try to share with nurses that if you're stressed right now and unhappy in your position right now and wanting something more right now, the best time to start a business is right now. Because
Absolutely.
otherwise, next year, you're still going to be stressed, you're still going to be anxious, you're still going to be feeling all those things. But if you invest even 15 minutes a day, 30 minutes a day, building something that's just for you and your family, And later, maybe you can look at it, a year from now, and maybe there's just a couple of $100 coming in a month from what you're doing,
Right.
but it's freeing you from the full time, right? It's allowing you to see something bigger that can grow. It's like planting a tree. It's going to take time. It's going to take time,
Yeah,
but you can start today.
absolutely. And it doesn't have to be an abandonment of what you've built so far. You don't have to walk away from nursing. You don't have to give up on all this, you spent however many years building, at the
Mhm.
bedside or whatever. It doesn't have to mean that you're walking away, that you're giving up. It's just a different season of your career and a different way to use your skills. And it doesn't always have to be one or the other.
Right.
There are plenty of nurse entrepreneurs who have something they do for fun so
Hmm.
that they can work only 2 shifts a week instead of
Right.
3, or just work PRN and pick up however many or few they want, so it doesn't have
Exactly.
to be all or nothing.
Hmm.
And I would say if anyone's interested in talking about nurse entrepreneurship, we are doing a session, an evening session at the summit, Teresa and I, to talk about nurse entrepreneurship. So that'll be a really exciting time to dig into
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
all the possibilities. That it's
So,
endless.
so many. Yeah, it's very, very exciting. I think that's fabulous advice. Thank you for that. So, Karen, I want to give you the next few minutes just to talk about your business, share more about the conference. How can people learn about that? Sign up for it if they want to get
Yeah.
started. Just anything you want to share with our viewers. The floor is yours.
Oh, thank you. Yes. So I would love for people to join us for the summit. It's coming up July 27th through 29th in Atlanta, Georgia. And we've got 3 full days of just all about you, training, activities, exercises, that are all about building your resilience as a nurse and as a human. How do you take care of yourself? How do you communicate your needs and boundaries to your family, to your friends, to your
Mhm.
employer? How do you take um, that hurt or that frustration and turn it into a voice and an advocacy and an opportunity to change? So we're talking all about how can the nurse take care of herself and use, fill her own needs. And so I'm really excited about that. You'll also get, like we talked about, the continuing education credits. And then we have some evening sessions, one being about entrepreneurship. So that's going to be really exciting. And then, of course, we're going to have like swag bags and fun, things like that. So it's going to be great. Also, everyone who's attending gets a free one-on-one coaching call with me to talk about their own resilience plan, their own situation, where they are right now. So you can kind of figure out, like, I don't, where do I need to start if I'm feeling overwhelmed or burned out, or, not sure what to do with my career or with my life right now. So I'm really excited. Everybody can go to rnproject.org and click on the button to learn about the summit. And we've got a coupon code for everybody who's listening. So I'm sure you'll put it in the show notes too, but
I will.
TS10, I made it simple so I could remember. But for Teresa Sanderson, TS10 will get you 10% off of your ticket price. Yeah, so I'm really excited. It's going to be amazing. And then also on our website, rnproject.org, you can see all of our upcoming retreats and any courses that we have out. So all of our other stuff is there too. But the summit is the next big thing. So I'm excited to see everybody there.
Super exciting. I cannot wait to be
Yeah.
part of the Resilient Nurse Summit. So thank you, Karen. You're doing some amazing work.
Oh,
And
thank you.
the nursing industry, the nursing profession needs you. They need you. So thank
Thank
you for
you.
answering the call and stepping out and doing this kind of work. And, we're very aligned in what you're doing and the work that I'm doing as well. So I'm just so very excited to be a part of it. And I think one lesson for other entrepreneurs who are tuning into this is that you can be in a similar space or even in the same space to other entrepreneurs, and there's no reason you cannot partner and grow
Absolutely.
just running parallel. I mean, doing the same thing,
Absolutely.
serve more people, you're going to help more people, you support each other. And I think our friendship is just an example of that.
Yeah, exactly.
I
It's
love
not
it.
a competition. We're here to make a bigger impact. And the more of us that join together to do that, the better the better impact we can make, and the more people are going to listen. you know. So I think when we're able to join and really think about a strategic way to make
Mhm.
bigger impact in our profession, people pay attention to that.
Exactly, exactly. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. So thank you again, Karen, for being my guest today. It's been an honor to just have you here and lots of fun to interview you. So thank you for sharing time.
Thank you so much, Teresa.
You are welcome. And for everybody who's watching, that concludes this episode. And I will see you next week on the Nurse Entrepreneur Spotlight. Bye for now.